the precipice of a global revolution of economics and politics and government. Welcome to the blockchain. Power corrupts, money is power. The power to control the money is one that is now in the hands of those who pretend we can't function without them. So how can we do something about it?
We are real-time, punk interviewers. So we are from Crypto Bazaar, Georgia, and we have a big community over there that are really interested in Bitcoin and in this revolutionary technology. And I think that Adam Beck, there is no need for introduction, so we go straight ahead with the questions. So the first question is, what is Liquid Network? How it works, in essence, future goals of it, and what problem does it solve, and whom it is?
Yeah, so Liquid Network is a sidechain, so it's a kind of layer 2. So people are more familiar with Lightning, so it's something like Lightning, but with Lightning you're only really able to do the same thing you can do on Bitcoin, but more scalably or faster. Whereas with a sidechain you can introduce different functionality. And so you could put different functionality in there, but the Liquid sidechain has, Bitcoin scripts plus Bitcoin. Like the native coin is Bitcoin, and there's a mechanism to move Bitcoin between the main chain and the sidechain and get it out again, which is called a peg. And then with Liquid, the blocks are not mined but signed. It's just due to limitations and what you can do in this kind of layer at the moment with available technology. And then in terms of new functionality, we added a few interesting things. One is confidential transactions, which is kind of counterintuitive but neat thing that I can transact and send you a Liquid Bitcoin transaction, and if somebody looks on the block explorer, they can't see how much was transferred. And also Liquid supports user-defined assets. So for example, there's Tether on there, so you can have stable coins or securities or other assets for various reasons. And again, on the block explorer, you can't see, what was the transaction? Was it Bitcoin? Was it Tether? How much was it? We don't know, right? And then because of it has a few extra opcodes that used to be in Bitcoin, like opcat and some new ones to do with covenants. It has quite extensive covenant support, so you can implement more complicated contracts. And but still in a Bitcoin model, right? It's like an extension to Bitcoin, but in a sidechain. And because you have support for multiple asset types, you can do like a trustless trade, trustless swap. So to trade Bitcoin for Tether or euros or what have you, and you can do that without trusting an exchange. Even directly from a hardware wallet, you can approve an order to, let's say, buy 0.1 Bitcoin at 60,000 if the price gets there, and then you sign it and you send it to SideSwap, and they put it in the order book. And if somebody takes it, the only way for them to take it is to pay for it. So you've got a sort of half-signed transaction, and when it's combined, it becomes a valid transaction, and then that can be sent to the Liquid chain, and it pays both parties, who could both be using hardware wallets. So, the only risk for placing a Bitcoin or a Tether in a hardware wallet onto a market to trade, the only way to take it is to pay for it. So it's completely safe to put it on the, on their order book, and they don't have custody of it, right? So you have this kind of trustless limit order being one where you can, pick a price to buy or sell and just leave it there and go offline. And then if somebody takes it later, then it will be swapped from your hardware wallet because you already approved transferring it for this price.
Okay. A bit tricky, but
yeah, I mean, the point is, it's like, because you've got some extensions and you've got support for other assets, the existing Bitcoin scripts applied to new assets lets you do these kind of things in a fairly simple way. Whereas on the main Bitcoin chain, you can't do that because the only asset is Bitcoin. Right?
Well, so the next question is, what is the main challenges of Liquid Network? So what about the level of decentralization as well? And what is the role of the Liquid Federation?
Yeah, so I mean, the main challenge with sidechains is the security model on like decentralization level. So it's technically difficult to make it fully decentralized, and so the implementation method is a federation, and so the liquid network blocks are signed by federation members, and federation members are just Bitcoin companies and exchanges or wallets and things like that. So they're running a piece of hardware, which is called an HSM, which is connected to the network. It verifies blocks and it will sign them if it considers them valid. And so the security model is that it remains secure as long as not too many of these functionaries, like liquid members, are hostile, and that they don't manage to bypass the HSM because it has some physical security. So, it's a little different from mining, but they're performing a sort of block processing function, a bit like mining, and it's also, because it's not based on mining, it's not randomized, so it's every minute rather than 10 minutes plus or minus some randomness, right, with Bitcoin. So yeah, that's what it's doing, and the implication is mostly affecting the peg Bitcoin.
Okay.
Right? The assets that are issued on it are still fairly trustless because any user can run a liquid node, like they can run a Bitcoin node, and they can verify the chain. And if the block signers did something unreasonable, they could replace them. Basically.
Okay. So basically, you should trust the Liquid Federation.
Well, not too much, but
Not too much.
yeah. I mean, you should always verify. I mean, so you can run a full node. I think that's one answer, right?
Okay, I have another question about the Bitcoin blockchain from space. No internet required. It seems like futuristics.
Yeah.
Who are users of this product?
Well, I mean, sort of technical users who want to go one level higher than running a full node, right? Which is they want a full node that can keep running even if the network is disrupted or they're in a very remote location where there's no internet.
So they have some more information than no humans, eh?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's receive only, but you can, get some not that expensive equipment, point it at the satellite, or get a satellite installer to do it for you, and then on your local network you can plug in a computer and it can, or a node, and it will receive the data, and then you can sync a node. You can do two things. You can sync a node from scratch, it takes a week or two, because the satellite's sort of broadcasting fragments of history continuously, and then once you're up to date, like you've synced your full node, it will stay up to date, receiving new data. And you can do something with that, like have the assurance that you have the correct Bitcoin data, even if somebody's trying to attack your network, let's say. Or you can do it in a remote location where, I mean, the other kind of use cases in emerging markets where bandwidth is expensive. So they have an internet, but it's expensive, like a 2G, 3G phone, but their bandwidth is expensive per megabyte. And, a high-speed internet connection is too expensive locally. So they can use the satellite to get the bulk data, and then when they're transacting, it's small, so they could just post that rate.
Okay. And I have the last question, more generic, let's say.
Mm-hmm.
It's given the increasing adoption of Bitcoin by institutions and regulatory bodies around the world, how do you see the future of Bitcoin evolving in terms of role as both a digital asset and a medium of exchange?
So I think the ETF type products, I mean, it's positive that regulators haven't, been heavy-handed and they're coming to accept Bitcoin. And so, maybe it's a bit of an alien or unusual concept for us to think of the major financial institution like BlackRock as, being in our corner and helping Bitcoin, right? But the fact is that Bitcoin's kind of incentive structure where you're rewarded for mining. It makes more sense to be honest in the network than dishonest. That works for bigger scales, and it works for bigger institutions too. And so, I mean, I think of the ETFs as just another access, a way for a different group of people to get access to Bitcoin who would find the technology difficult, or not want to deal with the IT backup risk and things like that. So, but I mean, I think it's important that the power users stay vigilant and do things themselves, keep their full nodes and keep control of their keys, because the network needs a certain proportion of people to do that, I think.
Oh, great. So this was the last question, and I have another one, bonus one. Mm-hmm. Are you Satoshi Nakamoto?
No, I'm not.
Okay, it was Crypto Bazaar, and it was.
Just one question.
This is Adam Beck.
Just one question.
Thank you, Adam.
Before you end, just one question about it. Like, what do you think about the HBO's documentary? We saw your reaction, but
yeah. So I mean, I think they cover a lot of topics. So it's not just this kind of who is Satoshi curiosity that people find interesting, but they have a very general audience, and I think it gives an introduction to Bitcoin and explaining about Bitcoin. I mean, the producer was interested in Bitcoin, so he was presenting it in the correct light generally. So I think that's positive to expand the audience for Bitcoin material, and maybe some of the people will go in deeper and be at conferences in the next year or what have you, right? So. And yeah, I mean, I think their conclusion is wrong, but I think we're not going to. And the person they pointed at denies it. I believe him, and I think there are good reasons why it's very, it doesn't seem plausible. But I think it's been so long, 15 years, and Satoshi stopped participating in forums in 2011 apparently. I mean, I wasn't involved actively till 2013, so he was already stopped by a few years before I got into the forums. But so many people were curious and tried to research for 15 years, and there's no new data since 2011, right? So I think there's not going to be any digital evidence, and then the only thing that's left is just sort of guesswork. It's a fun game, a party discussion. Could it be this person? Why yes? Why no? And of course, you can do that for anybody, right? Anybody who was interested in electronic cash or involved with Bitcoin, was a programmer, that kind of thing. So, or even people who are not programmers. I mean, some of the ideas are not very, doesn't seem very plausible, right? But people do it anyway.
So guys, Adam is not.
Also one question.
Once again, okay.
Not very hard.
Yeah.
What do you think? Why people want to know who is the Satoshi Nakamoto? Why it's important, for example? Because, for example, Satoshi decided not to announce about it. And the second one, for example, if someone find out, I don't know how, but if someone find out who is the Satoshi Nakamoto, who they are, I don't know, what's happened with the Bitcoin? It will change something or not?
Yeah, I mean, why? I guess it's just sort of human nature and curiosity, because it's a kind of historical story. So it's a bit like the book and film Atlas Shrugged. There's John Galt, and it becomes a kind of a saying, who is John Galt? And they're not expecting an answer. It's just a kind of mythology of something that's sort of almost a story now, right, and not a reality. So I think it's kind of a fun part of Bitcoin's history that it's got this unusual starting situation. And I think it's positive for Bitcoin that Satoshi left, because it makes Bitcoin feel more like a discovery than a technology or an invention, right? But I think if somehow he became known, I think it shouldn't make so much difference anymore, because there's so much time and so many people taking an active interest in defending Bitcoin as they see it should be evolving or not changing to outside requests. That, I mean, there are so many people that tried to change Bitcoin that just failed. Basically Bitcoin just spits them out, chews them up and spits them out. Anybody who went against Bitcoin and tried to, push for change or force something or get into some kind of political situation, it just completely fails. So Bitcoin seems to be like the incentive system seems to be very robust at not taking changes on unless it's very widespread agreement, right? So I think that would stay the case. So it's probably less of a problem than people thought it would be, because I think the block size wars showed everybody how actually Bitcoin is more resilient than people expected. So I think the people that were pushing for the big blocks genuinely thought they could make it happen, right? And then we all learned that that's actually a lot harder than it looks. Even the miners can't change it, for example, right? So it improved the understanding about the game theory through seeing it happen.
So, guys, thank you very much. So it's proven Adam Beck is not Satoshi Nakamoto. And see you later, and thank you very much.
To love it.
Yeah.
All right.
Ciao, ciao.
Decentralize the trust, security, transparency, the networks run by us.